National Conference on Engaging Men and Boys on Gender Equality in Nepal was organized on 26 and 27 June 2014 in Kathmandu. It is one of the preparatory activities from Nepal for second Global Symposium of Men Engage Alliance that will be held in New Delhi, India on 10 to 13 November of this year. Chief guest of the inaugural session and Minister for Women, Children and Social Welfare Ms. Neelam Kesi Khadka said that Nepali women have been raising their voices for equal rights since 1947.
यो देशलाई मात्रै होइन अन्तर्राष्ट्रिय क्षेत्रमा पनि एउटा खतरनाक आतंककारी 13 वर्षमा जेल पर्दा मलाई जेल हाल्न कानुन त मिल्दैन थियो आतंककारी भन्न पनि मलाई मिल्दैन थियो अनि मलाई ठुलो हिल भएको जुत्ता लगाएर म फ्रक लगाउँथे सानो स्कर्ट अनि मलाई यस्तो ठुलो बनाएर चुल्टी यहाँ बाटेर अनि साडी लगाएर पत्रकार हुँदा मातृभूमिको र त्यतिखेर के सन्देश भन्ने पत्रिकाको दुईजना इन्टरभ्यू लिन आउँदाखेरि मलाई ठुलो बनाएर प्रस्तुत गरेका थिए.
Recalling the contribution made by Ms. Yog Maya for women liberation in Nepalese history, Minister Khadka said, Nepalese women have been fighting for their rights for the century back, but we are still discriminated and our rights is violated in the society. She said it was a bitter reality that most of the men are double standard and hypocrite. This is because they have one thing in their minds and hearts, but something other to express in their lips. Chief guest Casey was describing the painful personal story of her arrest by the security personnel on the charge of a terrorist at the age of 13 for her participation in the field of women's rights. She recalled how she was given a pair of shoes with high heels to put on to make her look taller and matured while presenting before the journalists. She made a point that either the regime of autocratic government of Rana and partyless panchayat system and even today in the democratic government, women and girls are continuously discriminated, humiliated and misbehaved. She expressed her beliefs that without the full support of men and boys from their deepest level of hearts, with joint efforts, society will remain unchanged and the level of discrimination against women would continue to be the standstill. She wished for all the success of the National Symposium at the end of her speech. Likewise, Mrs. Sarmila Karki, President of NGO Federation Nepal and senior human rights activist, expressed her happiness for her successful endeavor to create a positive environment to revise and reactivate the Management Committee of Men Engage Alliance Nepal. As the chairperson of NGO Federation of Nepal, Ms. Karki was advocating the leadership of national NGO to the Men Engage Alliance Nepal rather than leading of INGOs as a secretariat or coordinating body. According to her concept, alliance must go with UN agencies, INGOs and other foreign partners with the vision of getting supports and helps, but lead organization must be a Nepali one. Women's rights and gender equality is not concerned to only women. Rather, it is a question of all the members in the society, be they men, women, boys and girls, and third gender or the sexually minority people. Mrs. Karki further opined, engaging men and boys is very basic in gender equality in the society. But the concept must be picked up on the personal ground by starting from the individuals at the relationship of husband and wife, mother and son, sister and brother, and like others. In total, it is a common issue. All the political parties and social forums must be aware and dedicated for the gender equality. She encouraged all the members of the steering committee who were playing roles of organizers for National Symposium that they will be able to collect the creative suggestions from the participants for Kathmandu declaration and strategy planning as a substantial and comprehensive document for the next 2-3 years and publicize the same for all. Miss Ganga Devi Guru, chairperson of the opening session of National Symposium and the chair of the Institute of Human Rights Communication Nepal, Secretariat for Men Engaged Alliance Nepal from February 2014, said that since the Men Engaged movement is a new phenomenon to Nepal, though the alliance was formed about 7 years ago, she urged all the management committee members and the general members to work jointly, bearing up all differences under the feet. Mrs. Safi delivered her speech by highlighting the importance of engaging men and boys on gender equality. As a strong and intensive manner, men are involved in the process of gender equality. It gets the expected result more than the expectations, she analyzed. All of the guests were welcomed by offering khada, colorful scarf by Mrs. Meena Bista on behalf of Men Engaged Alliance Nepal and organizing committee, whereas Mr. Tanka Panta, management committee member, was master of ceremony. Chair Miss Gurung, Chief Guest Casey, Guest Karki, Mrs. Safi, Chief of Adolescent Development and Participation Program UNICEF, and Dr. Sanjay Srivastava and Subhas Menpurkar, representatives from Men Engaged Regional Alliance, South Asia were offered khada, whereas team of organizing committee were behind the guests. Mrs. Bista, on behalf of organizing team, gave a welcome speech and recalled the history of Men Engaged Alliance that was incepted in 1991. The first White Ribbon campaign was launched by a group of men in Canada after the brutal mass shooting of 14 female students at the University of Montreal Engineering School. Campaign of men and boys for gender equality and standing up with the victimized women and girls has been continued since the tragic incident. Mr. Kapil Kafle, coordinator for Men Engaged Alliance Nepal, presented a thematic paper written by himself and Mr. Lakshman Belvase, outgoing coordinator for the same alliance. Started his presentation with the message of Mr. Oswaldo Montoya, coordinator for Men Engaged Global Alliance, to the Nepalese Symposium. In the message, Mr. Montoya writes, "Congratulate you all for the organization of your national symposium on engaging men and boys for gender equality. The work you promote at national level is the foundation for all the work that we also promote at both regional and global level." Global coordinator further writes, "We look forward to receiving the news about this important symposium, which we will share among the 6 men engaged regional networks functioning at this moment in South Asia, Africa, Europe, Caribbean, Latin America, and North America." Our global alliance is made of more than 400 organizations which exchange experiences working with men and boys, their lessons learned, their educational materials, and coordinate joint advocacy campaigns on specific issues such as men's support for sexual and reproductive health and girls, prevention of violence against women, and engaging men as involved non-violent fathers and caregivers. Mr. Kafle highlighted the major points of the thematic paper with its introduction to Global Alliance of Men and Boys who are dedicating to gender equality, relatively a new area of work that focuses on violence against women, gender-based violence, and other related works.
मा हुन त मेन एंगेज अलायन्स नेपाल मात्रै यसको आयोजक भनेर भन्ने होइन, ब्यानरले तपाईहरुलाई देखाइरहेको छ सेभ द चिल्ड्रेन फर वर्ल्ड जीविन यहाँ तपाईहरुले देख्नु भएको छ। त्यस्तै अरु संस्थाहरू आज दिनभरिको प्रस्तुतिमा भोलिको प्रस्तुतिमा पनि तपाईहरुले देख्नुहुनेछ।
Similarly, Mr. Kafle emphasized the other side of the coin, that gender-based violence is also not beneficial to men and boys. It undermines men's ability to exercise their roles as fathers and caretakers. Finally, he focused on the objective of the National Symposium is for creating an environment for second global symposium that is scheduled for November in New Delhi, India, and collecting suggestions for the strategy plan for another 2-3 years and issuing the Kathmandu Declaration. During the program, Mr. Menpurkar, representative from India, Men Engage Alliance South Asia region, highlighted the importance of engaging men and boys in gender equality and wished for the success of the national symposium. Nepal has achieved a certain level of success on the issue of men engage that other people in South Asia must follow and learn from you accordingly, he praised. Similarly, Dr. Srivastava from the same forum gave a clear vision on the concept of engaging men and boys for gender equality and its results to the society at large. Gender discrimination is not an issue that detriments to women and girls only. Rather, it victimizes the men in several aspects, Dr. Srivastava opines. He added that Men Engage Alliance is for men, women, children, and third gender people, and so on. After closing the opening session, two panel discussions were held on engaging men and boys in the educational sectors and media and masculinity respectively. Mr. Krishna Thapa, member of the management committee and chair of Partnership Nepal, moderated the first panel discussion, where Mrs. Radha Paudel, chairperson for Action Work, Mr. Trilochan Malla, representative of UNDP, Mrs. Ojaswi Saha, representative of Safer World, and Dr. Uddhav Puri, expert on harmony in the religions, especially between Buddhism and Hinduism in Nepal. About 20 participants raised their queries and concerns on the theme of the panel discussion after the presentation of the panelists. Similarly, Mrs. Jaya Luitel, President and CEO for Story Kitchen, was moderator for the second panel discussion. Mrs. Indu Panta Ghimire, representative of CARE Nepal. Mrs. Rasmila Sakya, Girl Power Program Nepal, Siwing. Mrs. Aruna Thapa, Gender and Development Expert, and Rituraj Bhandari, Advisor for Men Engage Alliance Nepal, shared their points of views respectively. Similarly, Mr. Umesh Pokhrel from Sathi Nepal and Mrs. Rosalie Pokhrel from Edicon presented their activities related to engaging men and boys for gender equality on behalf of their organizations. About 15 participants shared their experiences during the floor discussion. Domestic and foreigners also participated at the program. The foreigners understood the program with the help of interpreters managed for language transcription into English language. At the end of the first day, Mr. Dhanprasad Pandit, Associate Professor of Gender Studies in Tribhuvan University and the consultant for Men Engage Alliance, highlighted the findings of the day. Second day of the symposium was focused on two aims like collecting the suggestions on the strategy planning and producing the Kathmandu declarations. Education, media, climate change, sexuality, livelihood, security, reproductive health, sexual and gender based violence, and caregiving were the themes participants gave their feedback in order to make strategy plan for the alliance. Finally, Kathmandu Declaration was approved by the participants after intensive discussions on its contents. First number can be read as recognizing traditional values that Nepali society places on women, men, youth, third gender, along with so-called low caste, indigenous, Madhesi, suppressed class, and children to treat them as something other due to culture, practice, and behavior reason. We accept the need of Nepali men and youth's active involvement to establish a just society that treats all genders equally. We recognize the need to carry on honestly and encourage others starting from self and own family to make aware mentally the necessary to equalize existing gender inequality right today.